Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, dear esteemed colleagues who have joined us from around the world. Thank you for joining us today as we embark on a journey where we launch the CGIAR's Climate Community of Practice. We are a 600-strong group of scientists from across the 13 centers, and some of us will join this morning while others will join us at the evening 5 p.m. CET session. We are gathered here virtually at, I think, a very critical juncture in history because climate change is not just a challenge, but it is a defining crisis of our time. And the reason I say this is that if you think of it, agriculture started literally 10,000 years ago. And today our temperatures are warmer than it has been ever in those 10,000 years, which means, in other words, that our farmers have never, ever encountered the kind of climate that they're encountering today. This is absolutely unprecedented and is reshaping how we must approach food security, livelihoods, and sustainability. Now, this is of crucial importance to us as the CG who work with the farmers from the global south. Some of those farmers are often the least responsible for climate change, but are also facing the most severe impacts. So as the world's largest public sector organization engaged in research and innovation, CGIAR is also uniquely positioned to address these challenges with our global network of experts. And today's event is all about this global expertise that we have with over 600 scientists, and there may be more who work on this particular topic across our CG centers. So while we start this meeting today, I will just walk you briefly, all of you. First of all, thank you for joining. I'll walk you briefly through today's program and just some housekeeping rules. Keep your microphones muted and cameras off unless speaking. That's not for the panelists, who should always keep their cameras on. And so panelists and speakers remain visible during the discussions. For the others, participants, please introduce yourself in the chat and post your questions. We would be curating questions on everything, including the mega programs. So make sure you have them up in the chat. So this will ensure smooth interactive experience. So the way we will do is in the next 90 minutes, this will last for around 90 minutes. So I will take 5 minutes to set the scene, followed by, we are very fortunate today to have been joined by Dr. Esmahan Elafi, the Executive Managing Director of CGIAR. She will deliver welcome speech along with her vision in this particular climate space. Then we will have a short update from Emma, and I'll just come to the program. And then a panel discussion followed by some interactive Slido polls. So with that, I just wanted to share my screen and walk you through the agenda and everything a little bit more. So please use the chat to introduce yourself. Just a minute. And pose questions all throughout. So let me... Okay. Is my screen visible to you all? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So today we are basically celebrating the launch of our community of practice, but just as a bit of background, I think I have already talked about it. Our mega climate challenge that we literally have is, how do we keep the climate change to the minimum level? How can CGIAR's action in this space keep us within low levels of future emission while not compromising food and nutrition security? This is the mega challenge that we are facing. And this is a figure from IPCC that tells us that the actions we take today in this very decade will determine the future of our children, and for us at the CG, the future of the farmers from whom we work, to whom we provide our services. So the way the CGIAR's research and innovation strategy has 3 global targets around climate, and these are around mitigation targets. The second target is around adaptation, which is equipping 500 million smallholder producers. And the third target is around climate policy, which is around influencing national adaptation plan. So in the ideal world, and what we should all aim towards is how does our collective work across the entire CG system feed into these three overarching global targets. A part of this whole CG scheme of things in climate is the climate platform, which I lead. So the job of the platform is in some ways to bring together CGIAR's climate research into a coherent whole. So in that way, our functions are fourfold. Our function is that of convening, that of deepening and synthesizing, amplifying the work we do, and advising portfolio level. So the way we are organized ourselves are through different modules. Today, our focus is around expertise and themes because we are in the process of launching our community of practice, of which all of you are a part of. So we are a recent entity. The platforms are a recent entity. I have just completed 1 year of work in this. And these were some of the things that we have been able to achieve. We now have a searchable database of 600 scientists. We have a work plan, etc., in place. More importantly, we have been working with the entire CGIAR to enhance our participation at COP. We have been involved in evidence synthesis, including breakthrough report, and we have contributed to some of the major global scientific assessments. So the ambition remains curation of synthesis. So how can CGIAR as a whole shape global climate and food systems agenda that fit for purpose in a warmer world? To repeat, the world has never been more warm than it is now. So it's important that CGIAR is the largest player in the field, and food and agriculture actually shapes the global agenda on this issue. In particular, the role of the platform is around curation and synthesis of latest science. It acts as the intellectual home for all the CGIAR climate experts, and it informs and influences climate processes. Some of the key moments in 2024 that we look forward to are around today's launch of the Climate Community of Practice. We would, throughout the 90-minute session, hear about how we will plan to work together. A big moment for the CGIAR is, of course, the CGIAR Climate Mega Program that encompasses initiatives, bilateral efforts, as well as our future aspirations. So we have at least 2 other writers of the mega program with us today, and more will join for the evening session. And then we have some work around climate convening, including during the CGIAR Science Day in early July. Some of the key resources the platform has been providing are around Climate Insights, which is a fortnightly roundup of journal articles. I believe the volume 6 went out just now. We have blogs, evidence explainers, monthly newsletters. I know many of you receive these. And today we will discuss some of the key spaces where we can come together, including D groups. We have also started a monthly webinar where we talk mostly around the new topics. I mean, because all our initiatives are working on, and they have their webinars, but the value addition the platform wants to make is to bring together new topics. These are the members of the Climate Mega Program, Mega Writing Team, Mega Program Writing Team. So please get in touch with them and forward your contribution. There would be mechanisms for doing that formally as well going forward. And today we are very fortunate to have, as I said, Ismahan to give us the welcome remarks, and this is how the program will look like. These are our panelists, and with that, I hand over to Ismahan for her welcome remarks. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aditi, and really a pleasure to be with you today. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So thank you very much, Aditi, and thank you for bringing this community together today. And it's really a pleasure to be with you at the launch of the climate platform. I think really going forward, agriculture hasn't been really very evident as one of the main solution to climate change and to global warming, and what we need really to do. And that's where I'm very happy to see this 600 scientists from within the CGIAR that have interest and expertise in this area. We need really to strive to make it the main solution for climate change, the main solution for global warming, and the main solution to produce food in the new future climates. So it is really a pleasure to be with you here. I think really the CGIAR mission on delivering science and innovation that advance the transformation of food, land, and water system in a climate crisis says it very well. So we recognize that there is a climate crisis, but we know that we can't continue the path forward without real transformation. Having this community coming across all centers together and having 2 sessions in the morning and in the afternoon, hopefully will allow us really to gel as a community. I think the timing is perfect because not only there is a better recognition for the agriculture sector as a solution and as part of the climate debate, but also we are developing our mega programs that can span 2025 to 2030. So bringing this community together and working together, it's very important. And thank you, Aditi, for really leading that. So what we are saying in the mega program and in the new portfolio of 25-30 is that the impact areas are very important. So we don't want to really lose sight of those impact areas. And one of those 5 impact areas is climate. So we want to really make sure that everything we do has a component on climate adaptation and or mitigation. So either both of them or one of them. And of course, we prefer very much an adaptation target with a mitigation co-benefit. So I think together, this will make a set of a very consistent and complementary efforts to pull our diverse part together and to have a cohesive narrative on the most important development issues of our day, which is really adaptation to climate change. So from my side as a newcomer to the CGIAR, finding out that we have 600 scientists in this space, it's wonderful. Knowing that this 600 has, 6,000 working with them from other institutions and across the globe, it's a wealth that we need to nourish, that we need to nurture, that we need to really empower to do more. We were just talking with our colleague from the Netherlands, our system council member from the Netherlands, Timo, on how the narrative around agriculture and climate solution, it's not very clear and gelled in many places. And when we compare ourselves with energy, with transportation, particularly energy, you find that energy has got so much support for transformation because of their emissions. But agriculture sector is emitting a lot. And I would want to really cite Cave, colleague from FAO, that said, if we're emitting 30%, let's see, more or less, we should get 30% of the climate finance. And the reality right now, we are getting less than 4%. So there is a case to be made that if we want to really have a better world, we need to invest more in the agri-food system or in the food, land, and water systems so that we transform them so they continue to produce the food we need, both quantity and quality, but also they will be the solution to sink more greenhouse gas and to clean up our air and our planet. So for that, really, the platform that hosts this community of practice can serve as a new space to collaborate and deliver, a new space for scientists to come together and think together on how to make that narrative very strong and to develop new research areas. From my side, I see that our work on standards have been very, very weak, not only in the CGIAR, but in all public institutions. And I think really that's one area that we need to tackle. We cannot be the science and the house of climate adaptation and mitigation in the ag sector if we don't tackle also and bring evidence towards what are the best standards to be used. I know that space is quite crowded by other institutions, but I think from the scientific and the evidence side, we need to do more. We need really to clarify it. And the why I'm mentioning it is that I came across myself many policymakers or farmers that have been really completely lost in all of these standards. So I remember, for example, I was in Gabon last January 2023 when I was chief scientist of FAO, and the minister of forestry in Gabon said that they changed completely the management of the forest over 8 years to be able to tap into carbon credit market. By the time they finished the 8 years, or by the time they got engaged in that change in management, what happened is that the standard changed completely. And hence, they have invested a lot, but the standards in the meanwhile does not talk to what they have been doing. So there is a mismatch right now. And I think the science behind the standards has to be much more stronger. And CGIAR, be it the largest publicly funded institution, should be really bringing the evidence to back up the standards and to help the least income countries to understand those standards and prepare themselves to be part of the global, be it credit market or reporting on NCDs and what have you. So a community of scientists and practitioners is very important, and we owe it to our partners in the Global South to support and feed each other in our separate but complementary ways. So the community of practice, it's a great way to bring everybody together. And what I want to conclude with, Aditi, is that as we are doing this, remember to bring in your partners, because we are really a large institutions. Yes, we have 600 with us here, but we need much more. And hence, as you are speaking and you are thinking, represent those partners that you have and make sure that really we take the right priorities. The MEGA program is a great opportunity to bring that narrative very strongly, but also to bring those partners from the Global North and from the Global South. So congratulations, Aditi, to you and to the whole colleagues here, and wishing you all the best for this first launch of the climate platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismahan, and that's a message very well received. Focus on partnerships, because what we do mostly are through partners, and that includes our farmers and all the other range of partners. So thank you so much. I just now wanted to, before we move on some of this, I'm sure all of you are curious to know who exactly are in these 600, who are these 600 scientists, or perhaps you're also curious to know that what has CGIAR been doing in the climate space over the last 10, 15 years. So we have a bit of that my colleague Emma will present. But before we do that, we have a quiz for all of you, just to, well, test how much you may already guess about what we have to present. So if I may ask, so we have a Slido here. If you can either scan the QR code or you can join us on slido.com, and then this is the code 2068834. So our first question is, which two centers have the highest number of scientists who work on climate? So the way the database was constructed was we did a survey and we asked scientists to self-select themselves. And if they worked on any aspect of climate change, then they could consider themselves as scientists who work on climate, because we believe that climate change is such a wicked problem that we need every discipline that we can garner to work towards solving it. So we have some 30 participants, 20 participants typing, and I'll give it maybe another 30 seconds and okay, yeah, okay, we have. Okay, very many good answers, very many correct answers. So So that's excellent. We have Alliance Biodiversity and CIAD coming up quite a bit, CIMIT coming up quite a bit, EMI coming up quite a bit actually as well, IITA. So there's a lot, IFPRI, ABC, excellent. Can we now go to the second question? In which two countries are the greatest number of scientists working on climate change based? Like basically the location of the scientist. Okay. Yes, India, Kenya, Colombia. Maybe we have a lot of participants from India because of the time today. And also from Kenya, yes, Philippines. Excellent. Wonderful. So we have Kenya and India standing out. Do we have one more question, right? We have one more question, if we can go to that. About which climate hazard have CGIAR scientists produced the most research results in the last decade? Any guesses? Okay, drought does come out as the most important one. And I must say that most of you have got most of the answers correct. So well done already. So Vanessa, does it remain open? Can people still keep on putting their answers while we move to Emma's presentation where she actually provides some of these answers based on the data we have?
Yes, it will stay open.
It will stay open. So all of you, please keep putting your answers in. But I now pass on to Emma Boa. Emma has recently joined as the manager of the Climate Impact Platform. She actually started this month. So Emma and we have put together a short presentation that walks you through some of the details around who our climate scientists are. And and also a little bit of a synthesis of some of our science. Yes, over to you, Emma.
Thanks, Aditi. So I'll share some facts and analysis from 3 exercises. One is a climate survey that was shared with scientists across CGIAR. And then another one is a review of the data that is in the PRMS. And then also looking at some of the publications that have been produced at CGIAR over the last 10 years, since 2013. So in terms of the climate community of practice, the 600 members in it. So there's a short survey that was sent around across CGIAR. Any researcher who self-identified as working on any area of climate change filled in what was eligible to fill in the survey. And so far we have about 600 people who have filled in the survey. And from that, we have the COP that is being launched today. We have an email list and a Teams channel as well. And then in terms of which centers the scientists come from, so I think Alliance was shown as the lead even in the slide, followed by CIMIT, and then you can see how the other centers have fared as well. And then in terms of where the scientists are based, again, I think India and Kenya and Colombia came up a lot. We also saw some mentioning Tanzania, but this is based on the 600 that have filled in the survey, because I think there's somebody who puts in Tanzania, but you can see where it is in the survey. And then apart from where the scientists are based, there was also a question about where the scientists work, where they work and where they have expertise. So they may be based in a country, but then their work is beyond that country. And this is how the distribution is. So actually a majority mentioned that they work at the global level. But also we have seen that some of the ones who work at the global level also work in some of the regions here. Some of the numbers overlap as well. And then in terms of the aspect of climate change, my majority of the scientists work on impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability, as well as mitigation, the physical aspects of climate change and climate finance. And then we also have a range of other areas that were listed, and we have fewer numbers under those categories as well. And then this shows how scientists are distributed across the initiatives. So the blue circles show the initiatives, and then the pinkish, purplish circles show the scientists. So for example, here we see that a lot of scientists work in Climber and Mitigate Plus and Nexus, Gains, and as well as others, Excellence in Agronomy and these others as well. But also something that's interesting is that some of the scientists work in more than one initiative, and that's where the connections come. You find that there's a scientist working in Climber, but also in Foresight, for example. I think this is a good picture of how interconnected and some of the linkages that are happening across the initiatives as well, and how some of the scientists work in just one initiative, but others work in more than one. And then in terms of the PRMS and the publications, the journal articles that were produced since 2013, so out of the publications that were produced, 3,800 have climate change in the title or as part of the keywords. And this includes all centers except ICRAF. And then from the PRMS in 2022 and 2023, we have over 120 journal articles, and over 200 have climate indicated as principle in terms of what the focus is of the publication. And then some word clouds were generated using the 3,800 journal articles that had climate change in the title or as keywords in them. So of course, climate is a big word that appears in all of them, but we also see food security, for example. But also when thinking about climate, we have both adaptation and mitigation focus in the publications, which I think is a good balance. And then these are some of the thematic areas that a lot of the publications have focused on. So we have water, soil, forests, we have crops, we have livestock, we have irrigation, and others as well. And then in terms of the climate hazard, and I think this also came up in the Slido, drought is the hazard that has the most publications focusing on it. But then we also see what the other hazards are from the 3,800 journal articles. And then just looking at the 2022 in the PRMS, the peer-reviewed publications from 2022, in terms of what some of the focus areas are, we have a lot of the publications focusing on methods. We have them also focusing on climate impact, but also solutions. So those are the three main categorizations that we could look at when thinking about the content of the peer-reviewed publication. And then looking at impact as well, these are some of the impacts and looking at both current and future impacts. These are some of the ones that the scientists are focused the most about, looking at food systems, crops, livestock, and fish, natural systems, human systems, and also having a gender perspective in that, and then climate security and including migration. So those are some of the impacts that have been highlighted the most in the publications. And then in terms of solutions, so So we have a lot of solutions focused on adaptation, and this is around climate information services, climate smart agriculture, agronomy, and others, but also around breeding for resilience. So looking at resilient breeds and looking at different hazards as well. And then we also have a lot of publications which have both mitigation and adaptation. So mitigation with adaptation co-benefits, as well as the enabling environment, so focusing on policies and institutions, as well as finance. So these are the most cited in the publications. And so we, in the climate community of practice, a lot of the focus is going to be on synthesizing information and evidence around these issues as well. So this is phrased as a question if you're interested in contributing to the evidence synthesis, but we'd also like it to be an encouragement so that we all work together, because there's a lot that has happened and will be happening, and it would be good to have as many people as possible coming together to work on this. So I'll stop there and hand it back to you, Aditi. Thanks.
Thank you, Emma. Again, we encourage questions. There's a question and Q&A box, so please put your questions in there and we'll be happy to share. We have actually just given the huge volume of work we have done in climate. We have just started scratching the surface of it, and somebody has actually asked if we have a searchable database. Before we move on to the panel questions, I just thought that I would show you, we do have a beta version. This is something that we got it in collaboration with the PPU unit as well as our people and culture unit. So this is a searchable database where you can put in different filters, for example, so we can reset all the filters. This still doesn't have everybody because this was done a month or so ago, and since then we have had more scientists. So this one has around 473 scientists in it, and we can then put in various filters and say search for say people who work on, let's say climate, climate finance. My internet is a bit on the slower slide. Yes. If we do climate finance, then we have a list of people here who work on climate finance that comes below. Just a minute. So if you can see my screen, I hope you can. So there are all these lists, and this is actually a function that some of our colleagues have been using internally. This is still a beta version, only available internally to a select few who are using it, but we would make it open in the coming couple of weeks. So if that's, I saw that was a question for one of you. So in the meanwhile, please ask your questions. We will come back to those, and I wanted to go ahead and introduce our panelist for today. So this is in this panel discussion, we wanted to see how can this community of practice be best used both within the CG as well as externally. So we have our panelists for the morning session. Most of our panelists are internal to the CGIAR, while at the 5 p.m. we would have, actually the balance is a bit different. We have a lot of our external stakeholders joining the 5 p.m. session. So the way we would do this panel discussion is, first of all, hello to all the panelists. Please make sure to switch on your videos and your audio. And as I introduce the panel speakers, so first we have our scientists who are a part of this community of practice, and we have three parts of the science represented today. So first we have Charlotte Lutzi. She's the manager of the Genetic Innovation Science Area Function. Hello, Charlotte. Then we have Mamta Sharma, who is from ICRISAT, and she is one of the conveners for the Climate Mega Program. And our third scientist today is Ana Maria Lobo Guerrero. She is with the Alliance and of Biodiversity and CIET, and Ana Maria leads the climate work within the systems transformation, one of our science areas. So to all three of you, Charlotte, Mamta, and Ana Maria, in that order, my question is, what are your expectations of this climate community of practice? And what opportunities do you see for engagement? You can answer also in the context of the mega program that is being written right now, and you all are active parts of it. Over to Charlotte first. Maybe you can take 3-4 minutes to answer.
Very good. Yes, thank you. So I actually coordinate the gene banks at CGIAR. I'm speaking on behalf of Sonia Vermeulen, who leads the Genetic Innovation Science Group. And I'm speaking on behalf of the whole group. So that's accelerated breeding, breeding resources, seed systems, market intelligence, and gene banks. And just a few words about how climate has entered into so systematically breeding aims and goals. There has been a massive effort to bring in climate metrics into the process of developing target product profiles, and that is reaping results. So in 2023, out of the 198 varieties that were released, 165 were climate resilient. And that is to say, there were specific traits bred for specific climate impacts in specific geographies. So this is not, a blunt tool. This is now a really nice, precise way of really trying to meet needs. Added to that, there's quite a lot of effort on mitigation. And with artificial intelligence tools, we're able to do a kind of wider screening of diversity to look for traits we didn't think might be available in crop gene pools. So I think there's some really exciting areas where funders are seeing potential with funding from the Bezos Earth Fund and Bill and Melinda Gates. I think there's some really good potential there to do great science, not just work on resilient varieties, but on mitigation. So that's working in forages for anti-methanogenic traits and also in rice. So some really great movement in breeding and in gene banks, in screening collections. Also, I think there's a much greater result in attempting to look at how these new varieties are working in the field. The breeding pipeline has been very carefully developed in the past few years, and systems like the Tricot system are being used. It doesn't reap as much scientific data, but it does spread out the tests to a much wider range of users and environments and brings back some results that helps to tell us if these varieties are going to work. What we've only just started working on, and I think is an area where we could rapidly improve, is responses to humanitarian crises and needs. Seed systems is starting to work in this area for major climatic disasters, floods and droughts, and there's that area of work is growing. But I think there is a possibility, especially using things like online portals, for people to come in and find ways of identifying diversity in the gene banks or in breeding resources that might be responsive to their specific needs. And we're talking about small crises in localized areas as well as the larger humanitarian crises. So I think we've got a lot of work to do, and we depend on this community to help us build tools online and much more sophisticated ways of responding in seed systems. And just one other point I wanted to bring up was the need to look ahead And I don't think we've really succeeded in looking at the panoply of traits that might be needed in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. We could be working on that, and we could be leading the way right now in looking for traits in our collections, and identifying the kinds of materials. And we're talking now of crop wild relatives and things that take time to introgress into elite lines. These are the areas where we could be working right now for the future. So, I mean, I think we've made a massive amount of progress in this area of genetic innovation. I think we see where we can do more, and we're completely and utterly dependent on this community of scientists working across the whole spectrum, from social science to climate modeling, to help us do a better job. So thank you very much for allowing this space for us to talk. It's really nice to meet with this group, and I'm very interested to make contact with any of you if you're interested in gene banks. From the genetic innovation perspective, we do have a leader, a focal point on climate, and that's Alicia in Erie. So either way, we've got many eager people in GI to make contact with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Charlotte. And it's actually, I did not know that now majority of our traits are bred to be climate resilient. I mean, that was a new piece of information, and I thought I should have known it. So it's fantastic. And the other thing that you said is actually a big knowledge gap. Many of our current investments, we do not know how well they would work in a warmer world. So the discussions around pipeline of climate resiliencies that would just work as well in a 2-degree world, and that's no longer, you know, a theoretical possibility. We are kind of almost breaching 1.5, and 2-degree is a reality that will come soon enough unless we are able to bend our emission curve. So it's actually excellent, and it's a big part of the work that the CGIAR climate scientists do in terms of breeding. So thank you for being here, Charlotte, and walking us through. Now I have a similar question to Mamta, again, the value that this community can bring to the work and to mega program, and followed by Anna Maria.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi, and thanks. Hello, everyone. Thanks for this question. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Aditi, and the team for launching of this platform, which is really very important when we are working on this mega program on the climate action for food, water, and land. From that perspective, I think this platform is really very valuable and critical to build on. Because as you presented, a lot has been done. A lot of progress has been made so far in this area. Probably that's where we want to know more about that, where we are at the moment, what has been the progress that has been made by the different centers, the different initiatives working in the area of the climate change. So it gives us a lot of information from that angle to build on that. Not only that, I think this is a community you mentioned of the 600 plus growing people. So a lot different centers, the different scientists has done, and in the various areas you mentioned about the impacts, the solutions, the methods, the adaptations, mitigations. And I think the infrastructure and capacity is the another important one. We should know where we are, the different centers are probably, which can, I think, help us in understanding what is the knowledge gap we have. And that will probably be very important when we are defining this narrative or the theory of change of the mega programs on the climate change. So basically that become a kind of narrative which will be really important as we define this mega program and to further deliver on those action areas. I also feel this community of practice is really important. It's a kind of bringing a networking and collaboration. It's a platform which can the individual scientists can also bring, but the centers and the initiatives like this mega programs can build on. It brings a lot of collaboration, a lot of partnerships we can bang on, we can rely on. And that further is very important when we are developing a strategy for the 2030 mega programs. So I think it's really important when we can deliver this collectively. it's a kind of, as Ismahan mentioned, it's not only the 600 people, it's the individual network. So ultimately it's become thousands of people, and the collective wisdom of all of them is really, really very important and very critical to add that wealth of the knowledge and the expertise which is lying with the different centers. And that's probably is going to be the strength, and we are going to see in this, the mega program, what we are building on. And as the genetic innovation, Charlotte mentioned in the genetic innovation, again, the different innovations that has been made in the different mega programs or the different areas will again play an important role. When you mentioned this climate change is now a reality. All of us know we are heading into a warming world. We see the physical signs like the glaciers are melting. All of them are becoming a reality. And having that implications on the agriculture sector is, we are now witnessing that. The frequency, the increased evidences, intensity of the heat, flood, and drought we have seen that has increased a lot. So a lot of innovations is needed, and this community is going to be a kind of a bedrock to identify those gaps or those solutions where we are at the moment. So I will say that this is going to be a very important, and we will always look for this community of the practice to build on these individual center strategy, as well as the mega programs, what we are talking on the climate action. So I think this is going to be really important and will play a very, very valuable and the critical role while we look into the synthesis, what we are doing, where you are in those areas, the different areas, what we mentioned. All of them is going to be really, really very important for us to build on. So thank you for that. Yeah, thanks for the
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mamta. And this is absolutely the resource that we should be able to draw on while we finalize the writing of the mega program on climate. And indeed, I mean, I was just reading somewhere that, I mean, we all know agriculture started 10,000 years ago, and to think that in no time has a farmer experienced the kind of world that they are experiencing now. It's a kind of unprecedented warming. So, and I don't think we often think around those terms, but when we work with the farmers, we actually understand how difficult climate change has made their day-to-day decisions. And many of the times they are doing trial and error because they lack precise information. So I think science can play such an important role. And this is where, Anna Maria, a lot of the work that you have been doing and leading as a part of the Alliance is directly working with the farmers in terms of climate information systems, in terms of de-risking agriculture. So my question to you is that what role do you see of, but the similar work is also done in some other centers. So what role do you see of this community to bring together similar thematic areas that speaks to each other?
Yeah, thank you very much, Aditi, for inviting me to contribute to this celebration, as you said, of the community of practice. I'll use my 4 minutes wisely. So I'll just highlight 4 points that I think that are important, relevant, and that perhaps we can brainstorm more based on that. So first point, I think that it's great, the function of the platform in relation to synthesizing what is already there. But also, as Mamta mentioned, it can help us to understand what are the gaps. And that's fundamental in terms of how do we want to see the climate CGIAR work evolving in the following decade or so. But beyond this synthesis, I think that one of the key things of the platform that donors are asking for is to help us, all the CGIAR, to be very good at producing and sharing a very clear climate offer of the CGIAR. I think that this is something that it's really needed. It's going to help our partners understand better what is the comparative advantage that we have in the climate agenda. But it's also going to help us internally in the CGIAR to understand where we should be moving forward in relation to this offer and all the great science that we have. So that's my first point that I wanted to highlight. My second point, it's something that Ismahan mentioned, and I think that this is very important in terms of the work of the platform at the community of practice, and it's to empower the scientists, all scientists at CGIAR working on this topic, to do more. And in terms of this empowerment, I think that it is very important to make sure that all scientists understand that the platform is not duplicating anything that we are doing in terms of the implementation of our own projects, be it initiatives, bilateral projects, and therefore the importance of everybody seeing the value of this community of practice, of the platform, and how does it relate to the implementation of projects that are happening. So we already have through the survey more than 600 scientists that are interested, but I'm sure that we still have more that, and I saw in the chat that Susie, it's highlighting the importance of filling the survey. So just from experience from the Alliance, in the climate action research team, we are about 215. So I'm sure that in the other centers is the same. So it is very important that we can demonstrate the value of being part of this and that we incentivize scientists to join. My third point, it's something also that was mentioned before in relation to these standards, in relation to the science behind it and the metrics. And something really interesting, and I'm very excited about this work, it's this project on adaptation insights that it's funded by Gates. And we are working together with Aditi, with the platform, to make sure that we deliver the science that is needed in terms of addressing how CGIAR is doing on its adaptation efforts. So it's internally and coming up with the right indicators and theories of change behind that to really understand where are we, but also externally working with our partners and informing dialogues such as the global goal on adaptation. So I think that this is very important and one which the community of practice and the platform can contribute tons. And then my last one, Aditi, you mentioned Emma presented, or you presented the dashboard with all the information, which is basically based on the initiatives, the papers, the topics that are being discussed and the type of science that it's being produced in the initiatives. And this is something that Aditi and I have talked before. It's the importance, the same way that we are thinking about the mega programs, this holistic approach, which does not only include the work that has happened to the initiatives, but beyond, including the bilaterals, is to make sure that we have the analysis, that we have the complete picture of the climate work of the CGIAR. So remember that this is different depending to different centers, but for instance, in the Alliance, our climate work, it's only 30% that it's coming from the initiatives, 70% it's coming from bilaterals. So if we don't have in our dashboards and analyses that are going to help us to address gaps, then we have half of the picture or even less. So this is just my call to and I know that it's not easy, but to make sure that we can, through the platform, community of practice, have a holistic approach where we are including bilaterals. And just finishing by saying, and you asked me about a lot of the work that I do in terms of climate information services. So key things that are happening through the bilaterals that need to be connected to the work that is happening in the initiatives. Just thinking about, for instance, ICRA, which is an excellent example on how different centers are working together to reach those smallholder farmers so that they can have access and benefit from all the climate knowledge that CGIAR has been generating in the past 50 years. And this is a really, for me, it's a dream coming true in terms of having 8 years of this ICRA project. ICRA stands for Accelerating the Impact of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa. So it's really getting all climate knowledge of the CGIAR and putting it in the hands of smallholder farmers. So it's 8 years of the program. We have 5 more to go, $160 million supported by World Bank. So this is just an example on how we need to connect, and this is very much thinking about the scaling, as Berber was mentioning in one of her comments. So the importance of having the complete picture, because otherwise we are not going to be making the decisions based on all the information that is there. So I'll finish with that. Thank you very much, Aditi. Back to you.
Thank you, Anna Maria. All very, very important points. I mean, some of the asks that you are making of the platform is we are hoping to deliver, because we have a module on gaps and synthesis. We have a module on methods and metrics. Our thinking is exactly the same. The platform does not do primary research, because that's really not the role, but it's basically bringing together, making sure that our methods and metrics do not get lost once the project closes. And finally, while the PRMS is only initiative, the other part that Emma showed, the 3,800 journal articles, those actually span from across our entire portfolio. Those are every journal article that CG has published with the title of climate and all. But still, there's a lot of way to go. And that is where very soon we will make a call of interest, expression of interest for the scientists to be a part of that evidence synthesis. We are kind of currently bucketing those 3,800 journal articles into various thematic buckets. And we would have a call going out asking scientists if they're interested in being part of teams that will do the evidence synthesis. And finally, ICRA is, I think, a great example that all of us look forward to, because we really want our technologies to be available to smallholder farmers. So thank you all. Do not go away, because we'll ask your parting thoughts as well. But now we move from the science to some of the support services that actually help deliver science. Two of those are our innovative finance and resource mobilization. So if I might invite Julia. And the other one is helps do the research, that's raising money. And the other part of it is helps. But in advocacy, a lot of the things that we do in our research actually needs to go to these global processes. And that's the team around partnership and advocacy, James Stapleton, who helps us do that translation bit of work. So Julia and James, I have similar questions to both of you. I look upon these two as services that help science prosper. So by that, Julia, you have been using some of the database that we have made available for the work around GCF. If you can tell us a bit more about how you see this community of practice helping in your work while you start to tap the climate finances. And James, for you, the question is, what you see the role of this scientist group in some of the advocacy work that you do around the COP and all the other processes? So maybe Julia first, followed by James.
Okay, hi everyone. So I'll start by a concrete example of how I use the database that you just showed on the screen before the panel. So I think many of you are aware that CGIAR is accredited to the Green Climate Fund through the system organization as the accredited entity. And so from IFRM side, I am coordinating the building of a pipeline of multi-center projects for GCF. And we have in place this process for appointment of technical leads and writing teams through the Climate Investment Committee. It's an internal advisory board to pipeline development, let's say, which is co-chaired by the platform, by Aditi. It also consists of members from scientists from across the system who are appointed by the science group managing directors. Now, in identifying among our 9,000 plus scientists who would be a suitable technical lead for a given project idea, the database has become a very good starting point to do an initial search. In there, we can see where scientists are based, what regions of expertise they have, which initiatives they're involved in, also some bilateral projects they're involved in. So this is a really good starting point to identify suitable experts in line with the criteria that we have in place. Concrete example, there is an opportunity coming up in Mozambique, let's say. So then we go and search, is anyone based in Mozambique who has expertise in the region? Now this is a starting point because the platform, as you said, the database is like self-reported. It's 600 scientists, or going to be at least for now, but there are probably more across the systems who have not yet been involved there. So of course, we then also have to complement that with consulting with country conveners, regional directors, and so on. So I'm also looking forward for the community of practice to come together more broadly, to be able to, for us to be able to make use of the expertise that we have across the system, and to be able to raise on the agenda the importance of the agri-food systems in climate change adaptation and mitigation, but also to be able to attract resources and deliver impact for farmers based on everything that we have, basically.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Julie. So Julia, sorry, we have the CIC, Julie and Julia, and whenever I talk to them, I think of food for some reason. And that reason is that very famous movie on Julie and Julia, one of my favorites. But that aside apart, James, over to you. I think you use the community of practice for similar uses that Julia does, right? I mean, identifying people. We are just so big, knowing who does what is just such a big task by itself. So over to you, James, if you can walk us through some of the uses you can make of this community.
Thanks a lot, Aditi, and good morning to everybody, and thanks for inviting me. I mean, maybe the best way to start this off would be to sort of connect to what Ismahan said right at the very beginning of when we started to speak today, and she spoke about something of a conversation that she had with the director of the Office of Climate and Biodiversity in FAO, where he said, if 30% of the emissions are caused by agriculture or the food system, why is 30% of the finance not going there? And when I look at what CGIAR has committed to in its strategy in terms of influencing and informing, it's talked about influencing global and regional discourses, informing policy processes and decision makings, and mobilizing and strengthening global coalitions. And one of the major blockages around the food systems and around the food system finance is it's just not seen as being the major priority. Energy, transport are seen that way. And if you don't see food and agriculture as part of the priority or part of the solution, then the funding won't go in there. So the discourse size is really good. And when I look across this community, I see three things. I see the holders of partnerships, I see the holders of knowledge and intelligence, and I see the holders of skills. Right, and then to break that down a little bit more and what we've done in the last few years, I'm thinking of the Food Systems Declaration at COP last year and the African Leaders Declaration. We were able to go in and we were able to identify people who could support providing feedback to the government to shape that declaration. And some of the comments, both in the African Leaders Declaration and in the Food Systems Declaration, were ones that were put in by CGIAR. I think that's huge. This access to people that can be able to do it. The same thing goes for the G7. In terms of the intelligence and understanding the COP process, Aditi, you know, there are 45 or 50 different working groups in COP. Some of them produce up to 180,000 pages of material over a year to be able to, in their discussions. Nobody's got the time. So what I see, drawing on the intelligence, understanding who to speak to, convening scientists, because each individual scientist or small group of scientists have information, but it's very powerful, that knowledge, bringing it together and being able to not just identify one scientific skill, but to identify groups of scientists who can then inform and feed back and help us do it. And then in the last one that I spoke about, this idea of supporting global coalitions, coming out of COP, you know, we've been able to sign up to a number of global initiatives, and again, drawing on different scientist skills within the system to be able to advise and guide not just CGIAR and how it does its work, but also these global coalitions. One of them, the Technical Cooperation Collaborative, very high level, looking at trying to greater harmonization across the board. So this community is key. And then maybe just to stop a second, because I know that one of your questions around was, where do I see things coming up in the future? So one of the huge, powerful opportunities of these communities practice is this, I just said it, the knowledge, the partnerships, the intelligence. One of the risks is the silos. This year we have 3 COPs. The Colombian government is looking at the biodiversity COP very much from a climate lens. So it's really important that we're able to also make sure that these communities are working closely together, because there's a lot of opportunity to feed in and inform and guide the discussions around climate and biodiversity, the climate aspects of biodiversity and environmental health. And this and the other sort of spaces that I think will be really interesting going forward for this community, obviously the COP, the finance discussion, that's going to happen this year. If COP29 is going to be about finance, this community, and trying to draw in and make sure that we have the right finance people, because I think there were more finance people in the system. Some people see themselves as finance, but maybe not climate finance. So going forward, so I think they're the 2 sort of really big, the G20 and the G7, this community. We've already been bringing people in from this community, but to be able to do that more in a more consistent way will be really interesting going forward. I'll stop there, Aditi.
No, thanks so much, James and Julia. I think this was a good explanation of how this community and the resource that it is can actually help in many of the CGIAR functions. From scientists also, I think the kind of exposure that it gives them, understanding the GCF processes if they get involved in a GCF project, or understanding how COP negotiations work, is I think actually helps them do better science moving forward. So with this, I want to bring in our last but not the least, actually the most important in some ways of our panelists, Timo. Timo is a member of our Systems Council, represents the government of Netherlands. And Timo, you have heard internally so far from the various parts of the CG, the science and the support services, about how this community of practice can help us do a better job internally. What do you think? How can we contribute externally to some of the work that you are proposing to do with us in the future?
Good morning, Aditi, and everyone. Yeah, thanks for the invitation on the launch of this community of practice. I think it's super important. I ended up in policy, but my heart is really in the science. So every time I get to be in a CGIAR, I think that's kind of the highlight of my day. My own experience is that I get the best of my ideas when I talk to people who work on very different topics and in very different disciplines than I do. And I think that's why a community of practice is so important. It helps us look beyond our own focus, and all of that's important, but the picture is so much bigger. So for that, I really wish you a lot of mutual inspiration and serendipity as you do your work. I noticed when discussing climate change and food security within our ministry and also with other stakeholders, that we talk about it, but a lot of people don't realize how big the problem is. And also a lot of people don't seem to realize that the impact of climate change is non-linear. So it's getting bigger. We need to work on adaptation for smallholder farmers, but we also need to look at the big picture. And I think maybe there the community of practice can help to stretch our collective selves. Food security is caused by conflict, inequality, poverty, and many other factors, and that affects both production and the ability to buy food on the market. But we also need to look at the world market. There are tipping points in the food system that might need to be highlighted more. Aditi, we had a discussion about this before COP, and I think what you said there really, for me, raised the attention on that and put the alarm up. During an Asian megadeltas panel at COP28, I realized that once the big rice deltas flood, the risk of world cereal price volatility goes up enormously. And that is a tipping point, and it happens within decades. It's not a thing that we might avert, it's happening. Add to that multiple breadbasket failures, and we have a problem to which we don't have a solution, which will also affect smallholder farmers and urban consumers globally. So the urgency is of that message doesn't seem to get through to a lot of people. And I think there's still far too much muddling through. Oh, if we do a little bit of climate smart agriculture, then we'll solve the problem. It will not solve the problem. It will make a difference, but we have a global crisis to deal with. And I think there, both the platform and the community of practice are so important, because you can raise that message as one coherent message, and also inspire each other to let all the research that's going on sort of enrich each other and add to more than the sum of the different parts. I think another point where the practice, community of practice and the platform are really important for us as a funder is we need a short, concise story on the results of CGIAR's work. Because when we write to Parliament, we have literally 80 words to explain CGIAR. And I need a few headlines of this is the big picture impact of CGIAR on the world. And if we can explain that, that will help Parliament, that will help our own high levels to understand why it's so important that we continue funding CGIAR. So that's really important. The story, the results need to be clear and concise and put together. And thirdly, I think we need your work and the work of your partners to come up with common sense and practical solutions. We have limited funds as funders together. There's not enough money. The challenges are huge. So we need things that work for people and that fit within their budgets and risk appetite. And I think we, as donors, are often spending too much time and too much money on fancy things that are thought up from desks somewhere here in Europe, which may not actually work on the ground. We are not only a funder of CGIAR, we also have a real interest in the content of your work. I hope I've made that clear already. We have recently extended the Netherlands CGIAR partnership to 2030, the end of your strategy period, and that aims to strengthen the links with Netherlands knowledge centers and CGIAR. And I think two core components of that are senior experts who can collaborate with you to add value to your work. And I really want to encourage you, if you see people, know people that you think can add to your work, we can add some capacity to that. So please don't hesitate to engage. Again, that is for strengthening your work, not for us to tell you what to do. It is about the partnership and the mutual enrichment. And the other component is a research call that we want to do on governance and economics of the water-food interface under climate change in rain-fed Africa. There's a lot of focus on irrigation, a lot of focus on many things, but we see that rain-fed agriculture is going to be the thing for most of Africa in the future, and we want to see how under climate change we can keep things working there. So yeah, thanks a lot for this. I think it's super important what you're doing, and I look forward to a lot more inspiration from you, and I wish you all a lot of inspiration together. Thanks.
Thank you, Timo. This community of practice is basically the heart of climate work that we do at the CG. This literally what our scientists do is what makes CG what it is. So this is a bunch of highly motivated scientists all around us. And I am very conscious that I have taken time away from the Q&A session that I want to happen with the scientists. So with this, thanks a lot to all the panelists, and we would follow it up with a short Slido poll again, where we are asking. So thank you. Don't leave. We still have some 12 minutes to go. Maybe we will overrun by a couple of minutes because I really want to have the opportunity for the scientists to come in and ask questions. So please continue typing your questions in Q&A or in chat, and we would combine them and reach out to all of you. And thank you to all the panelists for bringing your perspective of how this community of practice can help in the work that you are doing. With that, Vanessa, if you can put up the Slido on the last question of the session. And this is really about how we can, as after hearing from all the speakers, tell us your ideas for some concrete activities that this community of practice can do together in 2024 and beyond. So it's so keep typing. I don't know how many of you are still here. Keep your ideas coming, and we would be looking at these and making sure we do as many activities as is possible. Okay. So while you are typing, please see Q&A and chat. Okay, that's a good question. That's a good suggestion. So may I actually suggest, in the interest of time, let's keep this open. Please keep putting your ideas in here while I ask Gina to very quickly present the D groups that we are opening up, and each one of you who has signed up for this will become a member of the D group automatically, and that's what my understanding is. Gina, if you can share your screen and quickly go us through. So this is one of the tools for collaboration going forward. Yeah. Put it in the...
Yes. Great.
And Vanessa, we should share what is coming up in that Slido poll. Please keep doing the Slido poll. We'll share it towards the end. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Aditi. It is exciting to have everyone here. As a lead communicator for the platform, I'm very excited about the conversations that we are having, and that as a committee of practice, there's a huge appetite for improved collaboration. We understand the wide range of opportunities the COP holds for us as an organization, and that's why we are continually adopting tools and platforms that will encourage collaboration, at the community level. And this is why we are bringing D groups here today, right? So D groups is an online platform that is a fantastic way to manage, grow, and improve collaboration within the COP. Users will have the opportunity to have quick real-time conversations, chats, create conversation boards and threads, create and participate in polls, and get access to quick updates and news. With D groups, we don't just plan to have an internal COP, right? We hope that in time we can grow into an external COP and use this platform to provide the space where climate scientists within CGIAR and beyond can meet and engage and collaborate. So why D groups, right? Our committee of practice is about 600 people strong. And while everyone has indicated interest in the COP has work that is climate related, based on our surveys, several, different scientists have particular areas of interest that they are more inclined to have conversations in. D groups will allow us to have, that kind of community that we can bring down silos, and also a platform where we can exchange ideas. Within D groups, we'll have subgroups for targeted discussions. I mean, we've sent out a survey recently to ask COP members, the kind of subgroups and conversations that they would like to see and join within D groups. While the response was low, based on feedback, we've already created 2 subgroups, right? Adaptation and mitigation, and we're in the process of creating more. Susie will share the survey link in the chat box, and we'll be sending it out again. So please let us know what other subgroups and conversations you'd like to have within D groups. If you take this survey to help us to shape how our subgroups look within D groups. I want to really reiterate that D groups is very simple to use. It is email-based and requires no technical knowledge. You can manage how the information comes to you. You can set your emails to track conversations within the platform, right? And those emails can be delivered to you either daily or weekly, depending on your appetite for tracking those conversations. And then you can make the decision to even go into the platform and, continue to have those conversations and engagement. With D group, we can share tools and resources. We can quickly share our research with scientists outside the CGIAR and generate, quick engagement and conversations around it. We'll also be able to view upcoming events and, engage with other attendees, ahead of time. It's an opportunity for us to communicate as a platform with the scientists more frequently than our bi-monthly newsletters, right? It's a two-way exchange. As a platform, we don't just want to have a one-way exchange where we communicate with the scientists and with the COP and not have any way of receiving, quick feedback, right? We want to hear from you. So this is a space for critical reflection and thematic, discussions. In the next few days after this call, you'll be getting an email that invites you to the groups. Please log in and create a profile. We will share this presentation and even more comprehensive information on the next steps and how to log in and manage your D groups account. Now, still speaking on collaboration, we have, let me just quickly share this. Yes, so still speaking on collaboration as a platform, again, we are continuously working to convene, CGIAR's climate scientists, synthesize climate research, and enhance the capacity of CGIAR and its partners and amplify external visibility. Our SharePoint site, which is internal, is another tool that helps us to communicate the work that we do. So this is our SharePoint site that I am displaying on the screen right now. The site has pages, right, where you can find latest information about our events. As you can see here, you also find latest publications, right? So we have climate insights, we have our bi-monthly newsletters. We'll also be publishing, we'll also be supporting the COP, right, to share their own publications on our SharePoint sites. We hope to start having our evidence explainers up there soon. We are also uploading information about all our scientists. So if you go to where you meet our experts, you'll find a page where we have the climate scientists. Oh my goodness, sorry. Where we have the climate scientists, right, within CGIAR, we have their profiles on that page. So anyone can go in there and just quickly get to see all our climate experts. We are still working on the SharePoint site. Again, Susie will share a link to the SharePoint site. Please go in there. We need you to view it, see it. We need your feedback. We need you to tell us what you think, what we can do better. So this is the page for meeting our experts. We've started building it up. As time goes by, we're going to have all 600 members here. So anyone that goes in there will see who the climate scientists in CGIAR are. We have the page that talks about how we convene spaces where you have information about D groups. And so we are working, again, to link this to our external site, which will also provide more room for resources and an opportunity to, again, amplify and connect CGIAR science with an external audience. Since we're in the process of rounding it up, again, the link is in chat box. Please feel free to explore and give us feedback. If you have questions about the groups or SharePoints, please slot that into the Q&A and we'll be responding as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina. And we are a bit behind time, but we also started some 3-4 minutes behind time. But I just very quickly wanted to open this up for a few questions. So is there anything in particular that what we will do is the ones that are in Q&A, we would type and answer the questions. I see that Murat has a question around, will there be internal and external collaboration and engagement, tracking research, using advanced methods? So here I think the answer is kind of yes. I mean, the kind of things that we can do really depends on what this community of practice wants to do together. But being very clear that particularly at the platform level, we do not necessarily do new research, but our job is more around synthesis. So certainly for knowledge synthesis, I see a lot of focus around using network intelligence and content analysis. And for that, we would be actually opening up a training session for evidence synthesis, followed by asking for groups who might be interested in doing those kind of evidence synthesis. I'm just trying to see, Gina and anybody else from the team, if you have any questions that you think we should be answering. I saw something. Alisher has asked, is there a possibility to have knowledge repository of CGIAR's most impactful climate change innovations? So I do think that the partnership PPU unit does have a very nice system of putting together innovations, and we would be working with them to figure out which among them are the climate innovations, and we would try to have a repository of those somewhere on our website. The other thing that we are planning to do is to have a repository around methods and metrics, because I think we do so much of innovations around those. And then once the project ends, we don't necessarily keep up with those innovations.
Yes.
Then Giriraj has a question around, yeah, go ahead, yes.
Yes, so it's the same question. It's a very interesting question by Giraj. That talks about what role our scientific data and innovation play in demonstrating the return on investment for increased adaptation funding in the region.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there as well. I think sometimes, as our colleague from the Netherlands said, sometimes the relationship is not so direct. It's not about data and the impact demonstrated directly into a funding proposal, but it's about making the people who invest understand who the organizations are and what the solutions are in a very synthesized way that they can manage it, because we're not the only group in the world that produces information. Having our space in major climate processes, having our space in the G7 conversations that we have this year is about creating the profile for CGIAR and its partners so its science can come in then when the opportunities arise. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually fantastic. And keep these conversations coming from our time, because I'm very conscious. I do not want to take more time than all of you have generously given to us today, to all the panelists and all the participants and all the team members of the Climate Impact Platform. Thanks a lot. In terms of the closing remarks, I wanted to say that this process of working together, today our focus was, as I said, we are celebrating coming together of this large number of scientists. So we want this process to be collaborative and co-created. We want this to be, interactive, where we share and co-create knowledge. So having heard from the audience, and I know maybe Vanessa, you can quickly put up the answers we are getting of how do we collaborate, if you have that screen up. So some of the concrete things that we would be doing in 2024 are around webinars on new topics. We would yes, so we have hackathons. Yes, so these are some of the plans we have this time around. So we have some webinars in a 2 weeks time. We have another webinar around loss and damage, more the legal aspects of loss and damage. We would have 2 fantastic speakers. It's coming your way. Then we hope to do podcast. We would continue with climate insights, which is literally every fortnight, any topic, any climate change paper that gets published in any good journal, we bring it to you, because I know, being a researcher, how busy we all are with our day-to-day work, that we often lose sight of the bigger picture and everything that's published. So we want to make that easy for the scientists. We want to deliver it to your inboxes. In addition, we would have newsletters. Then we also participate in the COP29 that preparations are on. We are working with a large number of scientists to help us have a more stronger presence at the COP this year. So with this, and I'm being conscious of time, I wanted to thank all of you with the assurance that we will get back individually to all your questions here. And in the meanwhile, if you are still in a time zone that allows you to join the 5 p.m. meeting, please do that, because in the 5 p.m. meeting, we have a lot more of our external stakeholders. We would have speakers from the World Bank, from GIZ Germany, and from our colleagues from Canada, GAC, in addition to some of our internal stakeholders. So with that, thank you everybody. Thank you to our participants. Thank you to our panelists for bringing in a huge richness to the discussion. And I continue along with all of you to have this enjoyable journey together. As Timo says, be inspired and inspire both. So thank you, and see you again at 5 p.m. if your time zone allows. Yeah, bye. We will be in touch.